It's 11 p.m., and I'm utterly exhausted as I step into my tiny apartment in Rochester, New York. As a 32-year-old firefighter, I'm used to long shifts, but tonight was different. A ferocious blaze devoured an old warehouse on the outskirts, and we battled it for a solid 6 hours to put it out. The stench of smoke still clings to my clothes and skin like a grim reminder that death lurks just a breath away. I kick off my heavy boots, leaving them sprawled by the door, and shuffle into the living room. The room is pitch black save for the faint glow of streetlights filtering through the window. I think about showering, but my body is so drained that all I want is to collapse onto the sofa and close my eyes. The moment my butt hits the cushion, I let out a sigh of relief, hoping for a peaceful night. But then the doorbell rings, shattering the silence. I jolt upright. Who the hell comes calling at this hour? Rochester isn't the safest city, especially at night, with its cold drizzle making the streets slick and shadowy. My heart picks up pace, a bad feeling washing over me. Maybe a neighbor needs help? Or someone at the wrong door? Or worse? I stand, padding to the hallway and flicking on the porch light. Through the peephole, I see two familiar figures, but their expressions send a chill down my spine. My parents, Anthony and Diana, stand there, their coats soaked from the rain, faces ashen under the dim yellow bulb, eyes shadowed like they've just clawed their way out of hell. I fling the door open immediately, trying to keep my voice steady even as my heart hammers. Mom? Dad? What are you doing here this late? What's wrong? I ask, my voice hoarse from fatigue and a sudden surge of worry. My mother, Diana, looks at me with red-rimmed eyes as if she's been crying the whole drive over. My father, Anthony, stands beside her, gripping her hand tightly, but he can't hide his own panic, his weathered face etched with deeper lines under the light. Their coats are dotted with raindrops, and I catch the musty scent of the night downpour. Elias, son, let us in. Hurry, Dad whispers urgently, his voice trembling. Not his usual stern tone, but like a plea. I usher them inside, shutting and locking the door behind them, my hands shaking slightly as they fumble with the deadbolt. The living room suddenly feels more cramped with their presence, the air thick and oppressive, like something heavy is pressing down. Mom collapses onto the sofa, her trembling hands clutching her purse, breathing in ragged gasps. She's wearing that old coat I remember from my childhood, now sodden and rumpled, as if she'd run through the rain. Dad stands beside her, not sitting, as if he can't bear to relax, but I see his fists clenched at his sides. I crank up the lights, pour 2 glasses of warm water from the kitchen with unsteady hands, and sit across from them. Mom, Dad, tell me what's going on. Why do you look like this? Is it Shane? I blurt out, my voice pitching higher with tension because my younger brother Shane has always been the source of family trouble. But this time, their faces fill me with real dread. Mom takes a deep breath, her voice quivering like autumn leaves in the wind, tears starting to stream down her cheeks. Elias. Son, you have to listen to me. Tonight, Shane. He came to the house. He pounded on the door like he wanted to tear the whole place apart. I opened it and he burst in, face flushed red, eyes wild with rage. He was yelling, "Give me the money. Right now. Or else, you'll all pay dearly." Oh God, Elias, I've never seen him like that. He was like a monster. She breaks off sobbing, her hand flying to her mouth as if to stifle the cries. My heart clenches, a cold shiver racing down my spine. Shane, my 25-year-old little brother, has always been the most spoiled in the family. But lately, he's spiraled deeper. Booze, light drugs, mounting debts. I've tried talking sense into him, but he always brushes me off. Now this threat, pay dearly? What the hell does that mean? Dad jumps in, his voice low but laced with a mix of fury and fear. He paces the room like he can't stay still. I tried to stop him, Elias. I yelled. Shane, cut it out right now. I'll call the cops if you don't leave. But the kid, he got even more violent. He snarled, "Call the cops? You dare? I'll give this whole family a lesson they'll never forget. No one's getting away." Then he smashed Mom's favorite vase, screaming nonsense, stuff flying everywhere. He stormed out, but before he left, he turned back and looked at us with eyes like he wanted to kill. Elias, he's not our Shane anymore. He stops, panting, his face flushed from the memory, his fist slamming into his other palm with a sharp smack that makes me flinch. I sit in stunned silence, trying to process it all, but my mind reels. Why would he do that? What does he need money for? More debts? Mom, Dad, why didn't you call the police right then? I fire off questions, my voice rising with anxiety, gripping my glass so tightly the water sloshes. Mom wipes her tears, her voice cracking. I don't know exactly, son. But he looked so desperate. He screamed, "You think I'm joking? I'll make this whole family regret it." I was terrified, Elias. Terrified he'd hurt someone. Or himself. He could come back anytime. She grabs my hand, her palm ice cold and trembling as if it's about to shatter. I feel her fear seep into me like an icy current surging through my veins. We sit there in the quiet room, broken only by the patter of rain on the window. But the atmosphere is a powder keg ready to blow. Mom and Dad had driven through the stormy night to get here, over half an hour from their place in pouring rain and howling winds. They feared the worst was coming, and now they're warning me. But their warning sets my heart racing. Elias, you have to be careful. Listen to me, Dad says, his tone more commanding but laced with desperation. He sits beside me, locking eyes with mine. That boy Shane, he could come after you anytime. He knows you've got a steady job savings. Your mom and I are worried he'll hurt you if you don't give him money. Tomorrow, don't go to work. Stay inside, lock the doors tight. Don't go out alone, Elias. If he shows up, God, I can't even think about it. He shakes his head, his voice breaking at the end, his eyes, once the stern gaze of a tough man, now red with worry. I nod, but a nameless tension rises in my chest like something squeezing tight. The bad feeling surges back as if the darkness outside is lurking, waiting to swallow me whole. I get it, Dad. But what if he comes here? What do I do? Call the cops right away? I ask, my voice shaky, trying to stay calm, but my mind conjuring horrific images. Shane banging on the door, bursting in with wild eyes. Mom chimes in, her voice shrill with fear. Yes, son. Call them immediately. Don't open the door. I'm begging you, Elias. Don't let him drag you into this hell. I couldn't bear losing another son. She throws her arms around me, sobbing uncontrollably, her tears soaking my shirt. Finally, they leave. I walk them to the door, watching their old car pull away into the rain, taillights hazy in the dark. I lock up, double-checking the deadbolt, then sit alone in the dim living room, heart still pounding. That night I lie awake in bed, the relentless rain whispering fears. I think of Shane, the little brother who used to laugh with me by Lake Ontario, now a rage-filled stranger. This isn't over, I know it. What about tomorrow? I clutch the blanket, shoving away the worst visions. Pounding at the door in the dead of night, Shane's silhouette out there, death threats on his lips. But deep down I sense the storm gathering, and I'm at its eye, a trembling center of fear. I slump at the kitchen table, phone in hand, hesitating whether to call Shane. Shane, what the hell are you doing? Stop this. I imagine yelling into the receiver, but no. It's late, he's probably blackout drunk somewhere, and a call would only make it worse. I picture him driving through the rain, face twisted in fury, and my heart twists again. What if he comes here? My apartment's on the 3rd floor, but the front door isn't impenetrable. I check the locks again, even drawing the curtains tight. The wind howls outside like fate's mocking laugh, and I feel like I'm waiting for an assault. Eventually I crawl into bed, but sleep evades me. Every small noise, the drip from the faucet, a car rumbling by, jerks me awake, convinced it's Shane at the door. I think about tomorrow, my shift at the station, but Dad's warning echoes. Don't leave the house. He'll come for you. I'll heed it, at least for now. But the dread lingers. This isn't finished, and Shane won't stop easily. The night drags on endlessly, and I lie there, awaiting dawn with growing terror like a bomb ticking down. My thoughts drift to childhood, making it all the more painful. Shane is a kid with his gap-toothed grin chasing me for a game of ball. "Come on, Elias, play with me." I taught him to swim in the lake, shielded him from school bullies. But then, as I took extra jobs to help the family, Shane started slipping. Mom and Dad always forgave, and I stayed silent. Now what? Am I to blame? The guilt cuts like a knife. The rain pounds harder like heaven's tears. I pray for a quiet night, but deep down I know the nightmare has just begun. And tonight's confrontation is only the prelude to a greater tragedy. The next morning I wake up early despite barely sleeping all night. Dim light filters through the curtains, spilling onto the cold floor. And I open my eyes with a heavy sensation as if the entire world is weighing down on my chest. My body is utterly exhausted, but my mind is strangely alert, as if it's on edge waiting for something inevitable to unfold. I sit up, my bare feet touching the floor, the icy chill creeping all the way up to my head. My small bedroom now feels like a cage, secure but suffocating. Today I'll stay home. No going to work, no stepping outside, listening to Mom and Dad. I tell myself that, but the bad feeling still haunts me. Shane could be out there somewhere, looking for me. I sit down at the kitchen table, staring out the window. The rain has stopped, but Rochester's sky remains overcast and gray, the streets slick and glistening under the lingering streetlights. A few early morning cars zip by, their engines rumbling faintly like a reminder that the world keeps turning, while my life grinds to a halt. I think about my shift at the fire station today, the close-knit colleagues, the adrenaline-fueled calls, and wonder what they'll think of my sudden absence. I pick up my phone, thumb hovering over a text to call in sick. But then I pause. Wait, maybe no need to rush. Then the phone rings. The shrill tone slices through the silence, startling me so badly that my coffee mug nearly tips over. The screen lights up, my boss's number. My heart pounds, an invisible fear tightening around my throat. Why is he calling so early? What's wrong? I take a deep breath, answer, and try to keep my voice steady even as it trembles slightly. "Hello, Chief? What's up?" His voice booms through immediately, urgent as if racing against the clock, laced with barely concealed irritation. "Elias, where the hell are you? Why aren't you at the station? We've got a major incident here. Your brother, Shane Porter, just caused a scene. This morning, not even 7:30, he was pounding on the doors like a madman, screaming to see you right away. Where's Elias? Get him out here now. I need to talk to him." That's what he was yelling. The security guard tried to hold him back, but he fought like a demon, shoved Tom down, and gave him a minor knee injury. Tom's sitting here now, getting bandaged up, looking pale as a ghost. I freeze, my grip on the phone turning my knuckles white. His words hit like knives, stabbing into my ears, my mind reeling. Shane, at the station? Causing chaos there. Chief, what did you say? Shane came to the station? What did he do? My voice cracks, choked with disbelief, as if I can't trust my own ears. The chief exhales sharply, his tone rising with frustration. He charged in like a wild animal, smashing at the glass doors, hollering at the top of his lungs, "Elias owes me money. He owes me big. Get him out here or I'll tear this place apart." Security rushed out to stop him. Tom grabbed his arm, but he shoved hard. Tom went tumbling, knees slamming into the steps. We called local PD right away, but before they arrived, the kid bolted and vanished. The station's a mess now. Stuff scattered everywhere, staff terrified, everyone scrambling. Some folks even thought it was a terrorist attack. I slump into the chair, my other hand trembling around the coffee mug, the hot liquid spilling onto my knuckles without me feeling the burn. All I feel is cold, a bone-deep chill from the inside out, as if my blood has frozen solid. Shane had hurt someone else, at my workplace of all places. I'm so sorry, Chief. I didn't know. I stammer, my voice breaking, words failing me. The chief softens a fraction, but his warning is clear. Elias, I don't want to blow this up. The firehouse isn't a place for family feuds. We're not filing a report on this for now, but you need to handle it. Your brother's out of control and he's dragging you down with him. Be back at work tomorrow and get this sorted. If not, I don't know what to tell you. You understand? I do, Chief. I'll take care of it. Thanks. I hang up, the phone clattering onto the table. I sit there, numb, staring blankly at the cooling coffee. Shame crashes over me like a tidal wave. Shame that my colleagues witnessed it. Shame that my boss had to call and chew me out. Shame that the Porter name is now tied to violence and chaos. Worry slices like a blade. Worry for Tom with his injured knee. Worry for Shane wandering somewhere with his rage unspent. Worry for myself if he tracks me down here. And helplessness. Such crushing helplessness that I want to scream. But all that escapes is a choked sob lodged in my throat. What did I do wrong? I tried to stay away, tried to keep quiet, but now it's all crashing down on me like a flood. In my head, Dad's words from last night echo like thunder. Don't leave the house, Elias. Lock the doors tight. That boy, Shane. He could hurt you. Now I get it. I get it down to the bone-aching pain. Mom and Dad's fears weren't unfounded. They were stark reality unfolding right now and worse than they'd described. I stand, checking the door again. Locked. Deadbolt secure. Curtains drawn. I turn on the TV, desperate for noise to fill the deadly silence, but the morning news is just weather and traffic. I close my eyes, whispering a prayer. Shane, if there's any sanity left in you, stop this. Before the whole family falls apart. I open my laptop, searching online. How to handle a family member with addiction and violence. Articles pop up. Maintain safe distance. Contact support services. Don't confront alone. I devour them, but each word cuts like a knife into my heart. That's my brother. The kid I shared a bedroom with, fought over toys with, hugged and cried with when Grandpa died. Then the doorbell rings abruptly. I jump, my heart skipping a beat. No, it can't be. The clock reads 8:45. Who? Shane? I creep silently to the hallway, pulse thundering like a drum, peering through the peephole with shaking hands. It's just my neighbor, Mrs. Mary, holding a plate of leftover toast. I exhale in relief, open the door to take it, mumbling a strained thank you with a forced smile, then slam it shut and lock it tight. My heart still races, cold sweat breaking out. I slide down to the floor, back against the wall, knees drawn up. Shame, worry, helplessness. They swirl together like a vortex. I think of Tom, the kind security guy who always joked around, now hurting because of my brother. I think of the chief. He'd trusted me, and now he's cleaning up the mess. I think of Shane. He used to be the good kid, acing math, dreaming of being an engineer. Now what? Booze, drugs, debts? They've twisted him into someone unrecognizable. Old memories flood back to me suddenly, like a torrent, sweeping away the fragile veneer of calm I desperately tried to maintain. They overwhelm my mind, so vivid that I feel like I'm reliving those days. The days when everything was still intact. Before the cracks began to spread. My father, Anthony Porter, a tall man with a weathered face. He used to be a railroad maintenance worker, toiling for the local rail company for 30 years. Braving rain and scorching sun to repair warped tracks under the bone-chilling cold of New York's winters. Dad was strict to the point where I sometimes thought he was forged from iron and steel, laconic, but every word he uttered carried the weight of a hammer blow. He viewed discipline as the standard of life, just as he inspected every bolt on the rails to prevent accidents. Life doesn't forgive laziness, Elias, he'd often say, his voice low and unyielding. To him, everything had to be in order, meals on time, the house spotless, and his children self-reliant. He taught me how to fix a bicycle when I was just 8, and if I made a mistake, he'd shake his head. Do it again. There are no shortcuts. But with Shane, it was entirely different. Dad was gentler, as if the youngest was an exception in his book of discipline. I remember once when I was 15, I skipped school to play ball with friends. Dad found out and dragged me to the garage, berating me. You think life's a game? Without an education, you'll regret it tomorrow. He made me scrub the entire garage until late at night. My hands blistered from the scrubbing. But when Shane, then 8, stole money from Dad's wallet to buy candy, he just shook his head with a sad smile. The boy's still young, Elias. We'll guide him gently. I stood there, swallowing my resentment, but I didn't dare argue. Dad believed the baby of the family needed time to mature, that Shane's mistakes were just a rebellious phase that would pass. He'd often say, Shane's different from you, Elias. He needs more sheltering. And so he kept indulging him, paying off Shane's overspending debts as he grew older, as if it were his way of compensating for his own hard years. Then there was my mother, Diana, a gentlewoman with a warm smile and deft hands that had tended countless patients in the hospital. She was a retired nurse, but before that she'd worked in the emergency room for 25 years, witnessing every kind of life's agony. Mom was kind-hearted, always the bridge between Dad and us boys. I remember those family evenings gathered around the dinner table with Mom's favorite stew. Dad at the head, Mom beside him, Shane and me across from them. Shane was always the center of attention. He'd tell jokes, making everyone burst into laughter while I sat quietly eating. From a young age, Shane had been like that, pampered, forgiven, the heart of the family. Now he lives in a cramped apartment in Rochester's west suburbs, a damp place cluttered with junk. Shane had started college, majoring in engineering, but dropped out after just 1 year. After that, he bounced between odd jobs, delivery driving, bartending, then unemployment, surviving on money Mom and Dad sent. Impulsive and quick to anger, Shane lives recklessly, as if the world owes him. He started drinking at 20, got into light drugs like marijuana, and has even assaulted others. The more he was indulged, the deeper Shane sank into his wayward life. He saw money and pity as things to exploit, calling Mom for cash, promising to change, then getting blackout drunk again, racking up more debts. I'd witnessed it all, but chose to stay on the sidelines. The gap between us brothers had become an unbridgeable chasm. We rarely talked, rarely met. Shane envied my stable job at the fire station while I grew weary of his midnight calls begging for money. Hey, Elias, lend me some. I swear I'll pay you back. He'd slur over the phone. I sent money a few times, then stopped, and he'd rage. You're so stingy. You think you're better than me? Those words cut like knives, but I stayed silent, not knowing what to say. Now, in this quiet room with the faint light from the window casting shadows, I realize today's tragedy isn't from one night of losing control, but the consequence of years of misguided love. The small cracks from childhood, the favoritism, the indulgence, had widened into massive fissures, swallowing the whole family. I sit there, tears streaming down, thinking of little Shane chasing me by Lake Ontario, grinning ear to ear. Catch me, Elias. Who is he now? A rage-filled stranger threatening his own brother. I think of Mom and Dad. They sacrificed so much, but their blind affection turned Shane into a monster. And me? I'd been silent too long, letting it all slide to this point. About half an hour later, as I was trying to gather my scattered thoughts, the noise started. At first, it was a pounding thud, like someone slamming their fist against the hallway wall. Then came the cursing, crude and seething with rage, interspersed with the clinking of metal, maybe keys or something scraping against the door. My heart hammered in my chest, a chill racing down my spine. No way. I shot to my feet, my legs shaky as I crept to the hallway inside my apartment, ears straining to listen. The pounding grew louder, accompanied by a shout. Elias, open the door. I know you're in there. It was Shane's voice, slurred from booze but brimming with ferocity. I froze, steadying myself against the wall. He'd come. Shane had tracked me down here right in the middle of the day while I'd been trying to hide from this storm. I peered cautiously through the peephole, my heart thundering like a drum. There he was in the hallway outside, face flushed crimson like fire, eyes bloodshot and bulging with fury, his stance swaying as if he might topple over. He wore that ratty old jacket caked in grime and reeking of booze so strongly I could almost smell it through the crack under the door. In his hand was a broken glass bottle, probably a liquor bottle, and he was banging it against the wall, the shards clanging sharply against the metal. His face was twisted in anger, early wrinkles creasing around his eyes, his hair a wild, unwashed mess like he hadn't combed it in days. Shane, the little brother who'd once laughed and played with me, now looked like a cornered wild animal. My heart twisted, a mix of fear and heartache. How had he become this? How had we sunk to this point? He bellowed again, his voice echoing down the hall, making me flinch and step back. Elias, open up right now. I need to talk to you. Get out here, you coward. Shane spewed a torrent of curses, vulgar words I don't even want to repeat, demanding I come out and settle this like men. His voice pitched high, laced with drunken hiccups but dripping with menace. You think you can hide from me? I'll smash this door down. You owe me, Elias. Give me the money. I recognized the savagery in my brother's eyes. That bloodshot glare wasn't the Shane I knew anymore, but a desperate man's ready to do anything. My pulse raced, cold sweat breaking out, but I forced myself to stay calm. Don't open the door. Don't confront him. That was Dad's advice, and now I understood why. I shouted back through the door, my voice trembling but trying to sound firm. Shane, go home. You're drunk. I'm not opening up. Go sober up. But my words only fueled his frenzy. He pounded harder, the thuds booming like thunder, and screamed, You dare kick me out? I'm your brother. Open this door, or I'll make you regret it. The whole family's gonna pay. Shane kept rampaging outside, the shattering bottle ringing out shrilly, glass shards scattering across the hallway floor. He kicked at the door, the impact so forceful the whole building seemed to shudder. Neighbors began peeking out, curious faces appearing in windows and adjacent doorways. Mrs. Mary from across the hall cracking her door open, the old guy from downstairs craning his neck up the stairs, but no one dared approach. They whispered among themselves, eyes wide with fear, and quickly shut their doors as if not wanting to get involved. I got it. Who'd intervene with a raging, drunk young guy? I stood behind the door, heart pounding, hands shaking as I clutched my phone. I had to call the cops. No other choice. I dialed 911, stammering when the dispatcher asked, What's the emergency? My brother, he's banging on my door. He's drunk and threatening me. Please come quick, I whispered, keeping my voice low so Shane wouldn't hear. He was still howling out there. Elias, I'll wait for you to come out. You can't escape me. The wait for the police felt eternal. Each second was torture. The relentless pounding, the echoing curses, the fear clamping down on my chest like a vice. I imagined opening the door, Shane lunging in with those wild eyes, and it all ending in violence. Then finally the wail of police sirens pierced the air outside, shrill and slicing through the tension. Shane paused for a split second, but then resumed his yells. You called the cops? You dare call the cops on your own brother? You traitor! As the patrol car pulled up to the building, two officers stepped out, a tall man in a dark blue uniform and a younger woman. They ascended the hallway stairs, voices authoritative. Stop right there. Hands down and step back. Shane whirled on them, his face flushing even redder. This is my brother's place. I have a right to be here. Who the hell are you to interfere? He lunged toward them, staggering, but the officers swiftly subdued him gently, the man grabbing Shane's arm, the woman patting him down and confiscating the broken bottle shard. Shane thrashed, bellowing, Let me go! Elias, get out here. You letting them manhandle your brother like this? The two cops held him firm, voices calm. You're intoxicated. Calm down. We're taking you to the station to sleep it off. I cracked the door open just enough to watch, but said nothing. My heart still raced, fingers gripping the frame tightly. The female officer turned to me, asking a few quick questions. You're Elias Porter? This is your brother? Are you hurt? I nodded, voice hoarse. Yes, my brother. He's drunk and threatening. I called you. They nodded, confirming Shane was heavily intoxicated, the stench of alcohol, bloodshot eyes, and erratic behavior. We'll take him down to the station to cool off, the male officer said. He'll be released once he's sober, probably a few hours. Keep your distance, and if you need to, file a complaint. I nodded, avoiding Shane's gaze. Before they hauled him away, Shane twisted back to look at me, his eyes locking onto mine through the door crack, a mix of hatred and desperation like a wounded animal pleading for mercy. That gaze, red-rimmed, glistening with tears amid the fury, burned into me, unforgettable. It wasn't the look of an enemy, but of a lost little brother crying out in his madness. Elias, you, he whispered, voice breaking before they pulled him along. I shut the door, leaning against the wall. The tense confrontation was finally over. I sat there in the now quiet apartment, ears still ringing from the pounding. The hallway outside was littered with shards, and neighbors murmured in hushed tones. I grabbed my phone and called Mom and Dad, voice shaking. Mom, Dad. Shane just showed up here. I called the cops. Mom burst into tears. Oh my God, my son. Dad was silent for a moment, then said, You did the right thing, Elias. That night, sleep eluded me once again. I lay awake in bed, the howling wind outside the window sounding like Shane's screams. His eyes kept flashing in my mind, jolting me awake multiple times. I thought of Amber, Shane's girlfriend, the young woman who'd been living with him for over a year. I'd met her a few times, a gentle girl with long hair and a warm smile, always trying to pull Shane out of his alcohol spiral. Elias? Shane's trying to change, she'd said once, her voice full of hope. Where was she now? Did she know what was happening? A vague worry gnawed at me, but I pushed it away. Maybe she was at a friend's place, steering clear of Shane's madness. The next morning I woke with dark circles under my eyes, my body drained as if all strength had been sapped from it. Weak sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting onto the floor, but it couldn't dispel the shadows in my heart. I brewed coffee, took a bitter sip, and then the phone rang. An unknown number, from the police station. My heart pounded as I answered. The male officer's voice from yesterday came on, calm. Mr. Elias Porter? We're notifying you that Shane Porter was released from the station last night. He sobered up. We advised keeping your distance. Call if there's any issue. I froze, gripping the phone tightly. Released? Last night? Where was Shane now? Would he come back? Thanks, I mumbled, then hung up. Unease surged like a tidal wave. Shane was free and his anger was still burning. A bad feeling urged me. I had to go to his place, check if he was okay. Maybe talking when he was sober would be different. I knew it was dangerous, but blood ties made it impossible to sit still. I threw on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and stepped out the door with a racing heart. Rochester's morning streets bustled, cars zipping by, pedestrians hurrying along, but I felt utterly alone in the crowd. I drove to the west suburbs, where Shane lived in his dingy little apartment about 20 minutes from downtown. The familiar route, past rundown neighborhoods, past Lake Ontario shimmering in the sun, felt endless today, thick with anxiety. I imagined Shane passed out asleep at home or regretting it all, waiting for me. But the bad feeling lingered. Something was wrong. I parked in front of the rundown building, looking up at the second floor. Shane's window was dark, curtains drawn tight. My heart quickened as I climbed the stairs, my footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Shane's apartment was on the second floor, the door ajar, unlocked. I stopped, heart clenching. Why wasn't it shut? I knocked a few times, the rap sounding hollow. "Shane? You home? It's Elias." No answer. I called louder. "Shane, open up. I came to check on you." Still nothing. Just a deadly silence spreading out. The sense that something was off swelled like an icy current racing down my spine. I pushed the door open gently and stepped in, my hand trembling as I flicked on the hallway light. The room revealed itself under the dim yellow glow. Chaos, as if a fight had just erupted. The sofa overturned, belongings strewn across the floor, broken liquor bottles scattered everywhere, and the air thick with booze mingled with something else, heavier and stranger. I ventured deeper inside, a chill creeping over my skin, goosebumps rising. The living room was wrecked. Books tossed everywhere, the wooden table cracked at one corner like it had been smashed, and long scratches marring the walls. "Shane? Amber?" I called softly, voice quivering, but only the wind whistling through a window crack replied. The bedroom door was half closed, pitch black inside, not a sliver of light. My heart thundered, threatening to burst from my chest. I nudged the door open, the creak piercing the silence like a scream, and the sight before me stopped me dead, breath catching in my throat. A woman lay motionless on the floor, her hair disheveled and splayed, covering half her face, her skin as pale as wax. It was Amber, Shane's girlfriend, the gentle girl I'd met. She lay there, eyes half shut, body rigid in thin pajamas, and on the floor around her was a dried smear of blood, dark crimson under the faint hallway light. The room reeked of death, the heavy metallic scent of mortality mixed with blood and stale liquor. I staggered back a step, heart slamming like a drum, hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream. No, it couldn't be. Amber, dead? I knelt closer, hand shaking as I touched her neck, ice cold, no pulse. Maybe hours ago, perhaps from last night. Everything pointed to a fight that had spiraled out of control. A shattered bedside lamp nearby, handprints smeared on the wall, bruises blooming on her arm. I backed away, slamming into the wall, mind spinning. Was this real? What had Shane done? I pictured it. Him stumbling home drunk after release, arguing with Amber, and then a fatal blow. My heart ached, tears welling up. I called the police immediately, voice trembling as I tried to explain. "Hello? Police? I'm in my brother's apartment. There's a body, his girlfriend, on the floor, blood everywhere. Please come now." The dispatcher fired questions, but I could only stammer the address before hanging up, collapsing onto the floor outside the bedroom, head in hands. I knew from that moment everything had spiraled beyond saving. Not just Shane, but the entire Porter family would have to face this horrifying truth. Shane, the little brother I'd once protected, now a murder suspect. What would Mom and Dad do when they found out? Mom would crumble. Dad would suffer in silence. And me? I was the one who discovered it, the one forced to witness this nightmare. I sat there in the death-scented room waiting for the police, mind a whirlwind of Amber's still form. She was only 24, full of hope, now lying cold. I cried, tears soaking the floor, thinking of our meetings. "Elias, I'll help Shane change." Now what? It was all shattered. The wail of police sirens echoed from afar, shrill and slicing through the deathly silence of the apartment. I jolted upright, my legs trembling as I stood. My heart pounded furiously as if it might burst from my chest. Just minutes later, the sound of hurried footsteps thundered up the stairs and the front door was shoved open. 3 police officers burst in, flashlights in hand and radios crackling with static. "Mr. Elias Porter, you called us?" A tall male officer asked, his voice stern but steady. I nodded, my voice choked. "Yeah, she's in the bedroom." "She's dead?" They nodded and swiftly secured the scene, stringing up yellow tape to block the entrance while another officer guided me out of the apartment. "Step outside, sir, let us handle it." "Don't touch anything," he said, his hand gently on my arm as he led me into the hallway. I stumbled along, feeling like I was trapped in a nightmare. Inside, the forensics team arrived quickly, clad in white protective gear, carrying toolkits as they began photographing and measuring. Flashes from the camera bulbs flickered relentlessly, accompanied by murmured exchanges. Dried bloodstains, probably 12 to 24 hours old. The cause of death could be that shattered bedside lamp. I stood in the hallway, back against the wall, trying not to look inside, but the stench of death clung to me, pungent and haunting. Outside, under Rochester's feeble morning sunlight, I gave my statement to the police with what little I knew. A young female officer, her hair tied back neatly and her voice gentle, sat with me on the steps, jotting notes in her pad. "Walk us through it from the beginning. Why were you here?" she asked, her eyes full of empathy. I took a deep breath, my voice quivering. "Shane's my brother. Yesterday, he caused a scene at my place. I called you guys to take him away. This morning, they told me he was released last night. I was worried he'd do something stupid, so I drove over to check on him. The door was ajar. I pushed it open and saw Amber there." I paused, tears welling up again, my hands clenching into fists. She nodded, probing further. Amber was Shane's girlfriend? How long had they lived together? Any recent arguments? I told her everything, the times I'd met Amber, Shane's impulsive temper, the alcohol and drugs, the threats over the past few days. He was demanding money, threatening the whole family. But I never imagined it had come to this. My voice broke at the end. She scribbled quickly, then reassured me. "You did the right thing calling us. We'll take it from here." But inside, the guilt churned like a storm. If I'd come earlier, if I'd stopped Shane yesterday, maybe Amber would still be alive. The investigative team quickly issued a BOLO for Shane Porter, the primary suspect in the homicide. I overheard them on the radio. "BOLO for Shane Porter, 25 years old, suspected of second-degree murder. Photo and details to all area posts. Maybe in hiding, possibly intoxicated or under the influence. Approach with caution. He could be aggressive." They pulled Shane's photo from the previous night's file, his flushed face, bloodshot eyes, and disseminated it rapidly. I sat there watching them work, my mind reeling. Shane, the little brother I'd taught to swim in the lake, now a wanted man. I pictured him fleeing somewhere in the suburban woods or a dingy bar, heart racing in terror. "Where might he be?" the female officer asked me. I shook my head. "I don't know. Maybe a friend's place or hiding somewhere." They nodded and pressed on, but fear swelled in me. What if they caught him? Prison? And if not, would he come back for me, for Mom and Dad? One officer asked me to accompany them to my parents' house for family verification and additional statements. "Come with us, sir? We need to speak with your parents to confirm Shane's details and get supplemental statements," he said, his tone professional. I agreed quietly, though my heart felt like lead. I climbed into the back of the patrol car, staring out the foggy window. The drive to Mom and Dad's, through familiar neighborhoods past the glittering Lake Ontario, now felt like a descent into hell. When the car pulled up to my parents' weathered old house in Rochester's suburbs, I saw Mom, Diana, standing at the window, probably hearing the sirens. She opened the door, spotting the police, and her face drained of color as if all the blood had fled her skin. "Elias? Officers? What's going on?" she asked, voice trembling, hands gripping the doorframe. Dad, Anthony, stepped out behind her, worry etched deeply into his rugged face, his silver hair disheveled like he hadn't combed it. "Son? Why the cops?" he asked, his low voice thick with unease. I stood behind the two officers, heart twisting as I looked at them, both aged visibly after days of fretting over Shane. The male officer delivered the news concisely, his voice calm but grave. "Mrs. Diana, Mr. Anthony Porter? We're from the Rochester PD. We're sorry to inform you that your youngest son, Shane Porter's girlfriend, has been found deceased in his apartment. Elias here discovered her. We're investigating a homicide and Shane is the primary suspect. We need statements from you to verify family details and information." His words landed like a bomb, reverberating in the quiet street. Mom staggered back, fingers digging into the doorframe until her knuckles whitened, tears streaming endlessly. No, it can't be. My Shane? A murderer? Amber? Oh God. She sobbed hysterically, her body shaking as if she might collapse. Dad stood frozen, hand clutching the edge of a nearby table for support, his face ashen, the lines on it deepening in the sunlight. Shane. Not the boy. He couldn't, he muttered, voice breaking, eyes reddening. I stood behind them, witnessing it all. Mom's sobs, Dad's stunned silence. And it tore at me like a knife. I wanted to rush forward and hug them, to say something comforting. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I couldn't save her. But the words stuck in my throat, unspoken. I just stood there, tears rolling down my face, helplessness enveloping me. The officer asked a few basic questions. Do you know where Shane might be? Any recent contact? Dad shook his head. No, he hasn't answered. Mom wept. Shane's a good boy. He just drinks too much. They took notes, then left, leaving the three of us in the old house, the air heavy as lead. With the police gone, the three of us, me, Dad, and Mom, faced each other in the familiar living room, scented with stale coffee and aged furniture. Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing, Oh, Shane. My son, how did this happen? Poor Amber. But Shane. There must be some misunderstanding. He couldn't have killed her. She expressed her shock and disbelief, face pale, but even then she worried for Shane. Where is he? Out there alone, cold. I have to call him. She grabbed her phone, dialing Shane's number, but it rang endlessly unanswered. Shane, baby, pick up for Mommy, she cried, voice cracking. Dad sat beside her, silent for a long while, then said, Diana, calm down. Shane, he'll be okay. He's probably scared, hiding somewhere. We have to help him. He tried calling too, but no answer. Their demeanor, shocked but still protective of Shane, still seeking ways to shield him, showed the indulgence lingered even now that he was a killer. He's the baby. He needs us, Mom whispered, wiping her tears. I sat across from them, pain surging like a blade. I shuddered at visions of what could have happened to me or to Mom and Dad if Shane had lost control in those earlier days, when he'd come looking. What if yesterday at my place he hadn't just banged on the door but broken in? What if he'd shown up at Mom and Dad's in that rage? Mom, Dad? Shane's very dangerous now. He killed Amber. We have to accept that he's a murderer, I said, voice trembling. We sat there in the silent room waiting for news from the police. Mom cried, Dad stayed quiet, and I ached. The truth was laid bare, and it was ripping our family apart. 2 days after the incident, I was still living in a state of exhaustion and endless waiting, like a prisoner in my own home. Sleepless nights stretched on, the image of Amber lying motionless on the floor replaying vividly, the stench of death lingering inescapably. I ate little, slept less, just sitting and staring at my phone waiting for a call from the police. My job at the fire station, I'd taken a few days off, and the chief was completely understanding. Take the time, Elias. Family comes first. But the rest only made things worse. My mind spun in circles. I tried to find some peace, but it was futile. Fear still lurked. Where was Shane? Would he come back? Would he hurt someone else? By the afternoon of the third day, as I sat at my parents' house, we were preparing dinner, the phone rang. The number from the police station. My heart pounded, hands trembling as I answered. Mr. Elias Porter, we've apprehended Shane Porter at an abandoned gas station off Interstate 490 about 20 miles from Rochester. The male officer's voice came through, calm but gravely serious. He didn't resist. We need you at the station for identification. I froze, gripping the phone until my knuckles turned white. I lied to Mom and Dad, saying I had an urgent errand. Then I drove to the station, the road stretching endlessly under the slate-gray sky, my heart racing. I worried. How would Shane be? Would he regret it? Or was he still furious? The police station loomed ahead, a cold concrete building with flickering neon lights. I walked in, and the officer led me down a long hallway, the air thick with the smell of coffee and old paperwork. "He's in interrogation. You'll ID him first," he said. Shane had been sitting in his beat-up old pickup truck, clothes stained with dried blood, offering no resistance when arrested. That's what the officer told me as he escorted me in. He'd been found huddled behind the wheel, eyes red-rimmed and staring blankly like a lost ghost on the deserted highway. When the police approached, he just nodded and raised his hands for cuffs without a word of protest. He looked exhausted, probably worn out after 2 days on the run, the officer said. I nodded, but my heart ached like it was being carved out. Shane, the little brother who'd once run around joyfully, now handcuffed, his shirt crusted with the blood of his own girlfriend. I confirmed his identity through the one-way glass. Shane sat there, head bowed, hair disheveled, face gaunt with dark circles under his eyes. "That's my brother," I whispered, voice choked. In the interrogation room, Shane sat silently, exhaustion etched across his features. Shoulders slumped, hands cuffed to the table, eyes fixed on empty space. The police questioned him about the night of the murder, voice stern. "Shane Porter, tell us about that night. What happened to Amber Collins?" Shane was quiet for a long time, breathing heavily as if wrestling with something inside. I stood outside, watching through the glass, heart twisting. Then he lifted his head, voice hoarse, and confessed. We argued," Amber said. "She had a new boyfriend. Wanted to leave me. I got angry. I grabbed the bedside lamp from the table and swung it at her head. Just once. I didn't think. When I realized she was motionless, blood pooling, I panicked. I ran, drove around aimlessly. His words came in fragments interspersed with sobs but clear, a painful admission. The police took notes, pressing for details. "Why the argument? What did she say?" Shane shook his head. "She called me useless, drunk all day. Said there was someone better. I lost control." I stood there, tears streaming down. Shane had confessed. Not an accident, but blind rage. The statement recorded his confession, and the evidence at the scene was enough to hold Shane Porter on charges of second-degree murder. "Fingerprints on the lamp match, blood on his clothes, and his account lines up with forensics," the officer told me afterward. Shane would be detained, awaiting trial, likely many years in prison. I nodded, but my heart felt like stone. As he was led out, Shane glanced my way, spotting me in the hallway. Our eyes met, his empty and desperate, like two lost souls in hell. No words, just that look. Shane's red-rimmed eyes, mine brimming with tears. Then he bowed his head and was pulled away. I stood frozen, feeling like a part of my soul was chained alongside him. That evening, I went to my parents' house to break the news that Shane had been caught and faced a long prison sentence. The house was dim, lit only by the faint kitchen light. Mom sat at the dining table, eyes swollen from crying. Dad stood by the window, staring into the night. "Shane, he's been arrested. He confessed everything. Second-degree murder. Could be 15 to 25 years, I said, voice trembling. Mom burst into tears, body shaking. "No. My Shane, he didn't mean it. Oh, my son, prison, I have to see him." She sobbed uncontrollably, hands covering her face, tears pattering onto the table. Dad remained silent, fists clenched so tightly veins bulged, his face rigid as stone. "He confessed?" he asked, voice low and laced with agony. I nodded, recounting Shane's words. The argument, the new boyfriend, the lamp. Dad said nothing, just gripped his fists harder, blue veins standing out. We sat there in heavy silence, Mom crying, Dad mute, me in torment. "Mom, Dad, we have to accept it. Shane has to face the consequences," I whispered, but Mom shook her head. "He's our son. I can't bear losing him." On TV, a brief news segment aired, the anchor's voice cold. "Shane Porter, 25, of Rochester, has been detained in connection with the death of his girlfriend, Amber Collins. Police say Porter confessed to the act during an argument. The case is under further investigation. Footage of Shane in handcuffs, head down, flashed on screen, making Mom cry out, "Turn it off. I can't watch." I switched off the TV, plunging the room into darkness. I understood the real sentence wasn't in prison, it was unfolding right there in the hearts of the living. Shane was bound by legal chains, but we, Mom, Dad, and I, were bound by pain, regret, and years of mistakes. That sentence, Shane's confession, was a knife to the heart, and it would last forever. In the days that followed, Rochester seemed transformed, the news of the case spreading everywhere. Local papers ran lengthy articles, TV stations aired daily updates, and neighbors whispered as they saw me. "The Porter family, the youngest, killed someone." Those words cut like knives, making me shrink into my home, venturing out less and less. My job at the fire station. I returned after a week off, but each shift was torture. Sirens blaring, I'd rush into the flames to save lives. But my mind was always on Shane, on how I couldn't save him from himself. Colleagues were sympathetic, clapping my shoulder. "Hang in there, Elias. Every family has its issues." But they didn't understand. This pain was a smoldering fire, impossible to extinguish. Mom and Dad aged visibly before my eyes. Mom suffered from insomnia, sitting for hours at the dining table, staring blankly at the family photo, tears streaming down. My Shane. It was just a slip-up, right, son? She called the lawyer weekly, hoping for leniency, even though she knew it was futile. Dad grew more silent than ever, sitting in the garage, tinkering with old junk, hands gripping tools as if to suppress his rage at himself. "I taught him wrong," he whispered once, voice breaking, then turned away. We met often, silent meals, fragmented talks about visiting Shane, but that shared pain only widened the gaps between us. I tried to comfort them, but I was drowning in my own regrets. If I hadn't stayed silent so long, if I'd forced Shane to face it sooner, maybe Amber would still be alive, and Shane would just be the rebellious little brother, not a murderer. Then the sentencing day arrived. 2 months after the incident, Shane Porter's trial officially began at Monroe County Courthouse, a stately building in downtown Rochester, with towering stone columns and cold marble hallways. We, I, Dad, and Mom, were there for the proceedings, sitting in the family section, hearts pounding like war drums. Mom wore a simple black dress, clutching a handkerchief tightly, her face pale under thin makeup. Dad donned his old suit, sitting ramrod straight but with red-rimmed eyes from sleepless nights. I sat between them, hands trembling, a bad feeling washing over me. Today, it would end, but the pain was only beginning. The courthouse hallway was crowded, lawyers bustling, reporters poised with cameras, and Amber's family seated opposite, their eyes burning with hatred toward us. I bowed my head, shame flooding me. "I'm sorry. We didn't know." The trial started at 9 a.m., the atmosphere heavy like a storm about to break. The judge, a middle-aged man with a stern face, banged his gavel, voice echoing, "The trial of Shane Porter for second-degree murder is now in session." Shane was brought in, hands cuffed behind his back, flanked by 2 officers. My heart clenched at the sight of him, face gaunt, cheeks hollow from 2 months in pretrial detention, hair long and unkempt, eyes weary and bloodshot like he hadn't slept. He wore a drab gray prison jumpsuit, walking with a limp, avoiding our gaze, head down throughout like a lost ghost in the vast courtroom. "Shane, my son," Mom whispered, tears rolling, her hand digging into mine. Dad was silent, but I saw his shoulders quiver. Shane took his seat at the defendant's table, never lifting his head as if he'd accepted his fate, but a fleeting glance out the window, empty, desperate, stabbed at me. The little brother who'd once laughed and played was now the accused, bound by his own actions. The prosecutor, a middle-aged woman with a sharp voice, presented the investigation's findings, her tone resounding in the pin-drop silence. "Your Honor, the defendant Shane Porter, 25, caused the death of victim Amber Collins in an uncontrolled argument. The investigation reveals The conflict stemmed from the victim's desire to end the relationship due to the defendant's addictive lifestyle. In a drunken rage, the defendant grabbed the bedside lamp, Exhibit 1, and struck the victim on the head, causing fatal traumatic brain injury and immediate death. She detailed it all, projecting evidence on screen. Crime scene photos with pooled blood, Shane's fingerprints on the lamp, the coroner's report on the wounds, and Shane's confession. Each word sliced into my heart. The argument, the alcohol, the fury, things we'd known but buried. Mom sniffled quietly. Dad bowed his head and I sat frozen, gripping the chair until my hands ached. The prosecutor concluded, "The defendant has a history of losing control. Alcoholism and violence proved this wasn't an accident but an inevitable outcome. We seek a sentence of 25 years. The defense attorney, a young man with a measured voice, pleaded for leniency, tone empathetic. "Your Honor, my client Shane Porter endured a difficult childhood, turning to alcohol early due to family and societal pressures. That night, the defendant lost control amid severe psychological distress, as confirmed by the psychiatrist's testimony. This wasn't premeditated murder, but a tragic accident in intoxication. We request mitigation given the defendant's remorse and cooperation." Finally, after lengthy arguments, the judge delivered the verdict. He looked at Shane, voice grave. "Based on the evidence and testimony, the court finds Shane Porter guilty of second-degree murder. Sentence, 20 years imprisonment, no early parole." The words crashed like thunder, echoing through the room. Shane sat motionless, no reaction, just his head dipping lower, shoulders trembling faintly in acceptance. No shouts, no tears, just deadly silence. As the officers led him out, Shane glanced back at the family one last time, his eyes meeting mine, Mom's, Dad's, full of agony, regret, and despair. Then he bowed his head and shuffled away, the chains clinking. Mom wailed, "Shane, my boy." Dad stayed silent, but tears traced down his cheeks for the first time I'd seen him cry. I sat there, numb, feeling like a piece of my soul was being dragged away with him. After court adjourned, the media swarmed the hallway, reporters descending like bees, cameras flashing, mics thrust forward. "Mr. Porter, how's the family feeling? Did Shane show remorse? What does Amber's family say?" The clamor, blinding flashes made Mom tremble. I supported her out, arm around her tightly, shoving through the crowd. "No comment." Dad followed, silently pushing reporters aside, face set like stone, not a word. We slipped out the back door into the car, driving home in silence. Only Mom's sniffles, Dad's heavy breaths, and my pounding heart breaking it. No one spoke on the way. Words were meaningless now, just that shared pain enveloping us. Back home, we sat in the dim living room, lights off. Mom cried herself to exhaustion and dozed off on the sofa. Dad stood by the window, staring into the dark. "I got it wrong, Elias?" he whispered, voice cracking. I hugged him, tears falling. "We all did, Dad." The night dragged on endlessly and the tragedy spoke, not in the courtroom, but right there in that house. Time passed, but that sentencing day haunted me forever. Justice and tragedy spoke together, and we listened in agonizing silence. A few months after the trial, as Rochester's autumn painted the leaves red, I decided to visit my brother for the first time since the verdict. I didn't know why I went. Perhaps to hear one last word from him, to let him say what was left unfinished, or just to close it all, so I could go on living without the memories tormenting me. The decision came suddenly one morning when I woke from a dream of little Shane chasing me by the lake. "Elias, wait for me." I sat up, pillow soaked with tears, and an intuition urged me. I had to see him, look into his eyes one more time. I called the prison and scheduled a visit. I drove alone to the suburban facility, the road stretching endlessly through withered golden fields, my heart pounding like a drum. Anxiety swelled. What would Shane be like? Would he be angry at me? Remorseful or just hostile? I gripped the wheel tightly, cold sweat breaking out, imagining the encounter. Him yelling curses or sitting in silence with his head down. "What are you here for? To laugh at me?" I pictured him saying, and my heart ached. But I went anyway because deep down I needed closure, to say the words I'd never spoken. The prison loomed ahead, a grim gray concrete fortress surrounded by towering razor wire fences, harsh lights glaring even in daylight. The air was oppressive, thick with the scent of metal and dampness, the clang of iron gates echoing. I went through security, emptying pockets, surrendering my phone, passing through the metal detector, my hands shaking as I signed the log. "Visiting room 3. "Wait there," the guard said, voice flat. I entered the waiting area, a small room with peeling white walls, hard plastic chairs, and a thick plexiglass barrier dividing the sides. I sat down, heart racing, staring through the glass at the empty space opposite, where Shane would appear. The nervousness was like my first fire call. No idea what awaited, just fear and a sliver of hope. The door on the other side creaked open, chains rattling, and Shane was led in by 2 guards. He wore a faded orange prison jumpsuit, hands uncuffed but his gait limping, his face even more gaunt than at trial. Hair long and tangled, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in months. When he saw me, Shane's eyes flickered. First surprise, then a mix of remorse and shame. He immediately bowed his head, avoiding my gaze. "Shane," I whispered through the microphone, voice trembling. He sat in the chair opposite, separated by the thick barrier. No anger left in his eyes, just exhaustion and a sadness that stretched like an endless river. We sat facing each other in silence for a long while, only our heavy breaths crackling over the speaker. The air was thick, like an invisible hand squeezing my throat. Shane lifted his head, voice hoarse. "Bro, why'd you come?" "To see how pathetic I am." His words weren't aggressive, just weary, like a man drained after a storm. I shook my head, tears rolling. "No, Shane. I came to see you. To talk." He looked at me, eyes wavering, remorse flashing, shame making him drop his gaze again. "You didn't have to come. I don't deserve it." Shane took full blame, his voice halting, laced with agony. "Elias, I was wrong. It's all my fault. I killed Amber, in a fit of rage. I couldn't control it. Every night here I think about her, about what I did. I'm just sorry for dragging the whole family through this shame. Mom and Dad, they have to bear the disgrace because of a son like me. And you got pulled into this pain, had to witness it all. I'm sorry, bro. Sorry for everything." His words cut like knives, tears tracing down his hollow cheeks, hands clenching into fists on the table. I listened without interrupting, heart aching with every syllable. That apology came too late after Amber's death, after 20 years behind bars. But at least it showed some remnant of humanity in Shane, some conscience amid the hell he'd created. I looked at him, remembering little Shane grinning. "Elias, play with me." Who was he now? A prisoner, but still my brother. I spoke briefly, voice shaking but resolute. "Shane, I heard you. The apology's late, but I accept it. I just want you to keep going here, own the consequences. Learn to change, read books, learn a trade or something. And if there's a chance, 20 years from now or sooner, find a way to rebuild your life when you get out. Don't let it all be for nothing." My words were simple but heavy with emotion. No blame, just advice from a big brother, from the one who'd once protected him. Shane nodded, tears pattering onto the table. "You're right, bro. I'll try. Thanks for coming." We sat in silence, eyes locking through the glass. No more anger, just lingering sorrow. I looked at him long and hard, like gazing at someone once familiar, now forever changed. The Shane of childhood, of smiles, now a gaunt inmate but with a flicker of hope in his eyes. Visiting time ended. The guards led Shane away. He turned for one last look, mouthing, "Take care, bro." I nodded, tears falling, and he vanished behind the iron door. As I stepped out of the prison into Rochester's overcast sky, I felt a slight lightness, not from forgiveness, but because we'd finally said what was left unsaid. The apologies, the advice, the looks, they untied a knot even as the tragedy remained. I drove home, autumn wind chilling through the window, and for the first time in months I felt a touch of peace. Shane behind bars, but his soul and mine a little freer. Time passed, but the Shane Porter case gradually receded into the past, like a scar fading on the skin, still tender and aching with every touch. In the months following that visit, I tried to keep living, not just surviving, but living to mend what could still be mended. In those months, I realized that tragedy never starts in a single day, but from the small silences, cover-ups, and indulgences people dismiss as harmless. I sat alone in my apartment, staring out at the rain pattering against the window, and memories flooded back like a deluge. The time Shane stole money and Mom hid it. The time he crashed his car drunk and Dad paid off the damages. The time he assaulted someone in a bar and I quietly bailed him out. Those little things, he's still young, he'll change. Built up into a ticking time bomb, and the Amber case was the deafening explosion. I shuddered, cold sweat breaking out, imagining if we'd said enough sooner. If Dad had been stricter, Mom hadn't covered for him, and I hadn't stayed silent. Perhaps Shane would have stopped, Amber would still be alive, and the family wouldn't be shattered. That regret woke me in the middle of the night, heart pounding as if fleeing my own past. Blind love can destroy a person because when no one says enough, they believe forgiveness is endless. Like Shane, who thought money and affection were infinite until he lost control and triggered catastrophe. I thought of Mom, who always believed love heals all, but now she was crumbling. Of Dad, who trusted time will teach, but time only brought prison. Anxiety surged as I pictured it. If we'd kept silent, would the tragedy repeat with someone else? I understood that forgiveness isn't forgetting mistakes, but daring to face them head on, to prevent repetition. I sat at my desk, scribbling those thoughts, hands trembling. Forgiving Shane, I'd done it, but without forgetting. Not forgetting Amber's death, not forgetting his eyes behind bars. That was the path to healing, staring straight at the wound, bandaging it rather than hiding it. I shared those thoughts with Mom and Dad one rainy afternoon. Mom, Dad, we forgive Shane, but we have to remember the lesson. No more blind indulgence. Mom cried. You're right. I was wrong. Dad nodded, voice low. From now on, we do better. The conversation was tense, my heart racing with fear they'd lash out, but they listened, and that simmering sorrow slowly turned to resolve. I envisioned the future. If I ever had kids, I'd teach them responsibility, no coddling, and that intuition made me anxious, like stepping into a new chapter.